So we've all seen the empty shelves in our stores. We kind of got a taste of how bad things could be last March when the pandemic hit and people stocked up on everything. We're in a situation now between the supply chain, labor shortages, pandemic, transportation. Things are shaping up to get bad again, and this time it could be for a much longer time, given the transportation crisis. Hopefully, if you've watched my videos for a while, you've started stocking up by now. In this video, I'm going to show you what my local stores look like, as well as give you a look into what I'm stocking up on, and what's in front of you here, which will be the first thing we tackle, some things that most new preppers might have forgotten or not thought about. So let's get into it. So before we start out with common things that you might have forgotten or not thought about as a new prepper, I want to show you what my local stores look like. Now granted, these are not anywhere near the levels they were last March when everything went nuts and literally stores were out of food, period. But you're starting to see the holes in shelves. You're starting to see the empty spots. You're starting to see stores facing products, putting them all the way up front and nothing behind them. So I wanted to take you around and kind of let you know. Now, we're a town of about 36,000 people on about, 500 square miles? So we're pretty well spread out. It's not a tiny little town like it used to be, but you get the idea. And I will tell you, for the most part, most people shop at Walmart. Now, I know some locals are going to be like, I never go there. Well, from looking at the stock levels, you can see most people shop there. What I did was I went to the three biggest grocery stores in town, and that is Walmart, Smith's, and Albertsons. And I took a little bit of video, and yes, the video's a little shaky. I had to do it with my cell phone. My cell phone does kind of have an internal gimbal, but it doesn't work all that great, for what I was doing. The video's shaky because I was trying not to draw too much attention to myself, honestly. Some places have really strict policies about video inside, and I didn't want to start any trouble, so I just wanted to show areas. I don't want to show people or anything like that. And I want to show areas where there were shortages. And you can see that in some areas they're totally out of stuff, and in some areas, it's not as bad. So I'll give you an idea, kind of a quick overlook of what it looks like where I live, and we'll go through the three stores, and then I'll bring you back and we'll talk about items that new preppers might have not thought about or forgotten.
Alright, so we're starting out in Walmart. I wanted to show you the rice section. A lot of the smaller rice is still there, but the big bags are all gone. Instant has been picked over too. Chef Boyardee starting to show holes in the aisles there. Lots of empty space there, and the mac and cheese as well. Really surprised to see the completes here. The Hormel completes, they're just gone. I mean, probably because they're the cheapest place in town. But they were all gone. North's doing pretty good. The meat aisle. See, when I tell you about the meat aisles never recovered from the pandemic, it's looked like this since March. Let's go down the vegetable aisle really quick here. You see a lot of facing, cans being moved forward to make it look like it's full. You're seeing a whole lot of empty spaces in the vegetables. Now, mind you, the soup aisle here on the other side and the vegetable aisle took up one whole aisle each. Now they're sections of an aisle. So that's definitely been picked over. I suspect all this broth is gone because it's Thanksgiving coming up. But the soups have never been this low. So they must be having trouble getting the soups in. The ramens were stocked up. Now, this is the weird thing. Every store I went to was out of pasta. I mean, really low on pasta. It's like people are stocking up for the pasta apocalypse. And the sauces as well. Again, this may look full to some people, but to this store, it's empty. Then we got our instant potatoes. They've been picked over pretty well. It's easy enough to make, regular potatoes, but... Alright, so now we're in Albertsons. Now, Albertsons was looking pretty good. There were holes in the aisles. There were spots where it wasn't full. Albertsons has mastered the art of facing things. Their crackers, see how there's nothing behind those boxes? They have everything moved up to the front to make the aisles look full. And you'll see here where I push in, and you see there's nothing behind those carrots. So the stock is definitely low, and instead of making shorter shelves, what they've done is faced all the food up and put it like that so it looks full, but it really isn't. Next up, we're going to the ramen soups there in Albertsons. They're pretty good. Still holes in the stock, which never were before. Now we're at Smith's, and this is the soup section here. The soup section was pretty good, not too bad. The meat section here this was a shocker. I believe this is back at Albertsons, and there was absolutely no meat on the aisles. Now, now we're at Smith's. My mistake. And the rice is actually good here. The rice is filled up pretty well. Again, a lot of facing on the cans. They're pushed forward, nothing behind them. For the beans and the beans and wieners. Cat food. If you have a cat, get cat food, because all the stores were like this. The canned, I believe it's aluminum can shortage, and the cans were gone. So cat food definitely you need to stock up on if you have a pet. Let's go down the aisle here. We're back at Albertsons now, actually. And you're looking down the aisle here. It looks like the toilet paper apocalypse is beginning again. All right, we're back at Smith's here. And this is the bread aisle. A lot of the bread that I like wasn't there. I noticed that they have the plain stuff is all there. This is all the taco mixes and Hispanic foods and stuff. They were pretty low. The Asian section was pretty well picked over. There's those Indomie soups I love. The rice was actually full at Smith's. Again, the pasta apocalypse. People are just buying pasta up everywhere. So it's not, as I'm taking you through these stores, you see it's not that they're totally out of food. It's just you're starting to see shortages and low stock on things. Now, their canned meat section in Smith's was pretty good. A lot of little Spam cans there and stuff. But you still see these big, huge areas that used to be filled with Chef Boyardee stuff. There's nothing there, All right, moving back over to the ramen soups. They actually had a good amount of ramen soups there. Again, low stock on some things, but it was there. This is what got me. Chips. Who stocks up on chips? The chip aisle was just ravaged. They had nothing there. So it was kind of shocking to see all the chips. Now the juices and the canned like Goya drinks and stuff and sodas, I kind of had to do this stealthy because some employee was there, so it's bouncy a little bit. But you can see the stock is really low on sodas, which is probably a good thing because you shouldn't be drinking all that much soda. Smith's did have a very full meat section. The meats were just packed up perfectly, so I got to say that. But what you're starting to see is the beginning of shortages of things being out of stock. But the meats were pretty good. Canned vegetables, again, very low. Now, again, we're coming up to Thanksgiving, so people could be buying this stuff for Thanksgiving, but there's the ramen soups again. I kind of walked by there. This is the soup section. And again, you can see how picked over it is. I was kind of ending the video here, so it went a little quick. But yeah, it's definitely low stock on a lot of things. The flour in Smith's was good. In Walmart, it was almost gone. See, there's lots of baking supplies. That's no problem yet. And all the jellos and sugars were low. Let's see what else we got coming up here. That's about it.
All right, so that was pretty eye-opening. You got to see, that some areas are really bad, some stores, and some stores look really good, but everything's pushed up to the front and faced, and some stores are really doing okay in some things. A good example was Walmart being really picked over on the rice, and yet literally a mile and a half, not even, maybe 500 feet away, Smith's has rice all over the place. So it is kind of interesting to see, different stores and different stock levels, and it is obvious that a lot of things are starting to be in short supply. So what we're going to do now is, for all the new preppers out there that are just getting started, I'm going to show you a few things you might not have thought about yet for your preps. And this is only kind of once you're got your food and water. All this stuff is what I call a nice to have, but you want to get your food and water first. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is a way to heat your house. Now, you notice I have a Mr. Buddy heater back there. I love that thing. That is awesome. If you're sitting in a chair, like when I work at my computer, while I'm editing videos, and it's cold in the house and I don't want to turn the heat on, I can put that on the floor. And that base is very stable with that 1 pound propane can. 1 pound propane bottle. And screw that in, turn it on, and it points right up at me. You can see how it's pointing upward like that? And it keeps me nice and warm. So a way to keep your house warm without using your electricity or power or whatever. If you have a fireplace, now's the time to start stocking wood. If you are planning on using these kind of heaters, now's the time to start stocking up on propane. And I recommend the Mr. Buddy heaters for new preppers because they're safe. They're made with a carbon monoxide monitor, so they will shut off if the carbon monoxide level gets too high. If they tip over, they shut off. Now, that's not going to mean your rug isn't going to get burned when that hot plate hits it, or your wood floors or whatever, but it is safer than it falling over and burning and keeping flame going. So that's why I recommend them. But any way that you have to heat, no matter what you have, you want to stock up on fuel for it. If it's a kerosene heater, stock up on fuel for it. And if it's propane, make sure you have enough propane. There is a propane shortage right now. However, I'm not seeing a shortage yet of those green bottles. They're in all the stores. They're much more expensive, but they're in all the stores around here, in the camping sections of like Big Five and stuff. So they're definitely out there. You may pay a little more for them, but it's time to stock up on them. All right, next item, tarps. I don't have one out here because the one I thought I had for video I ended up throwing it out because it was old and beat up. But tarps are very handy. Not only can you make shelters out of tarps if you're ever forced to evacuate, but they can cover damaged areas of your house. We found this out about 4 years ago when we had a roof leak, and literally we paid a handyman $20 to come over and tarp the area that was leaking. Now, because it was raining so bad, there were no tarps for sale in town. I had some stocked away. They can cover windows that are broken. They can do a lot of handy little things. They can close rooms off. So if I'm running two of those little Mr. Buddy heaters and I want to close my living room off from, say, my bedroom, I can put that in the doorway and block it, or close the door and stuff it underneath, whatever. I can block the area and kind of keep a closed, warm area in the house. Next up, batteries. Again, most of this stuff's just representation. This is just stuff I use every day. But whatever size batteries your stuff takes, make sure you have a good stock of them. The Duracells that now last 10 years, very good batteries, and they do work very, very well. You'll pay a premium for them, but they're worth it. Next up, multi-tools. Now, we just did a multi-tools video a few days ago with the next tool. This is my flagship Pro that I absolutely love. Get yourself multi-tools. They come in handy so much for around-the-house kind of repairs, as well as if you ever had to leave your house and bug out. It's kind of like carrying a little portable toolkit. This is a little Leatherman sidekick that I used for years at my job when I was working at the gun shop, and we were selling ammo, and I was ripping open boxes with it. So yeah, get yourself a decent multi-tool. It's really up to you. I would say these next tools are on par with the Leathermans, and that's a pretty big statement because they're really quality. And you can check my older videos for that. So definitely get yourself a multi-tool. Knife sharpeners. You're going to be using your knives a whole lot more. Whether you're using them to, maybe make kindling, baton wood, whatever you're going to be using to do if you don't have a proper axe, you're going to want knife sharpeners. Now I had back here my, this guy I've had for ages. This thing, I'd beat the heck out of this work sharp. But it is a very, very good sharpener, and honestly, this is what taught me the correct way to sharpen knives. I learned about angles and the way to do it, and stropping. The strop back here has seen a lot of use, but it's still good. So I learned a lot by using this. Or this V-Sharp that we just demoed a little while ago. Very, very simple system. You just literally put your knife in and pull it down about 30, 40 times, and you got an edge. So knife sharpeners, definitely a handy little thing. Even for your kitchen knives, you're going to be using that a lot more. You're going to be cooking at home a lot more. That dull set of kitchen knives that can barely cut a tomato in half, you're going to want that sharper, because a sharp knife is a whole lot safer. Next up, duct tape. Okay, that kind of goes without saying. Duct tape has a billion uses. I mean, you can MacGyver redneck things with duct tape. You can fix things. You can hold things together. Very, very handy. I like the Gorilla Tape myself. This stuff sticks and really sticks well and does not come off. So that's definitely a handy little thing to have. All right, let's move on next. Paper plates and plastic silverware and foam cups or plastic cups. You don't want to be wasting your precious resource of water washing dishes. Very, very handy to have for emergencies. You can reuse these. My thinking would be I'd probably just use one plate a day, one fork and one spoon, or knife a day, one cup. And I'd just dump them out, wipe them out with a towel, whatever, and then throw it out at the end of the day. Yeah, all right, it's not perfect sanitation, but at least eating meals off it, one plate a day, won't be wasteful. I have a whole lot of paper plates and silverware stored away, and plastic silverware, because there are a lot of times where you just don't want to use your water doing dishes. Also, with the situation we're with the pandemic, if somebody's self-isolating and you give them a plate, do you really want to wash that plate and risk, getting sick off it or reinfecting yourself or whatever? Whole lot easier with paper plates and all paper type stuff and plastic. Makes it a whole lot easier. All right, next up, rubbing alcohol and witch hazel. I love this stuff. Witch hazel is awesome for cuts and bruises. Rubbing alcohol is just in general awesome for everything, from cleaning yourself up, from even washing your hands. A lot of the reason we couldn't find this stuff after the pandemic is because it was being bought up in bulk to make hand sanitizer. Everybody wanted hand sanitizer. So that's where it was. So witch hazel is also an awesome antiseptic. So if you've got a cut on your hand and you want to clean it up, but you want the burning and itching or sting to go away, use the witch hazel, clean it up, and it will be an awesome antiseptic for your hand. All right, next up, we're going to talk about prescription meds. And again, this is just a representation of an old empty prescription bottle with some tinder in it. But if you are on any kind of medication that you take daily, make sure you talk to your doctor and see if you can maybe get a little extended supply of it. Yeah, there are places online where you can buy prescription meds. I'm not recommending that. That's up to you. That's all on you. But it's a good idea to have extra, especially if it's a life-saving drug. You know, if it's some kind of heart medication or, blood pressure or whatever to keep your blood pressure in check, you want to be able to have that. And you want to get it now before shortages start. One of the problems we're having with meds in general is a lot of these meds rely on what are called APIs, or active pharmaceutical ingredients. And those APIs are produced overseas. So even if, let's say, your Tylenol is made here in the USA in a factory, it has an active pharmaceutical ingredient in it that's from China or India or whatever. And with the shipping issues, they're starting to get in short supply. A lot of, the FDA has a shortage page of all the drugs that they're currently having a shortage on, and I've never seen it this full. I mean, it's from A to Z, 30 pages of shortages. So you definitely want to make sure you get your over-the-counter and prescription meds ahead of time. You really don't want to be stuck, worrying about getting a drug because the ingredient that makes it work is stuck on a cargo ship out on the port, in LA or whatever. So over-the-counter stuff and prescription stuff, any kind of pain relief type stuff that isn't a narcotic, like, muscle rubs, all that kind of stuff, definitely handy to get it now before it's too late. Soap. Now, I just have a bar of Zest here, but I'm talking about all kinds of soap. Dish soap, laundry soap. I've been stocking up on dish soap, believe it or not. Soap for your dishwasher if you're going to run it. Soap for your laundry. Any kind of soap you can get right now. That was another thing that was very, very short supply during the pandemic, and a lot of people don't think of that. They'll start prepping and they'll buy, all right, I got my food and my water, I'm all set. And they'll go to take a shower and be like, oh darn, I don't have any soap, and they're out in their cupboard too. So make sure you get soap for everything. If you really want to cut it down and be really basic, you can get some Fells Naphtha soap. That's still sold in a lot of places, also Zote, and you can kind of shred it up and use that for everything. You can use that. Once you shred up the soap and melt it in hot water, you've got soapy water, and that can be used for a lot of different stuff too. So that's kind of handy to have. Okay, lastly, two last things, sewing supplies. I didn't bring any out here, but we have a sewing machine, any kind of emergency, we can repair stuff. A lot of clothing. Where does your clothing come from? India, China, Pakistan, all these different countries that has to be shipped here. It may be out on a port on a boat, So you may have to repair your own clothing. So learn how to sew, even if you just buy a simple little emergency sewing kit. I'm sure, the University of YouTube will have tons of information on that for you. Lastly, shoes and boots. Okay, I got boots over there. But extra pairs of sneakers, boots, shoes, all this stuff is not produced in the USA, a lot of it anymore. And even if it is, they may rely on products that are out of the USA. If these, USA-made boots rely on rubber from India or China or wherever, you're not going to get those boots because they can't get their rubber. So those are things that are commonly overlooked items. Now, I'm going to go into a few food-wise items that I'm stocking up on now, and I'm putting back in, of course, a larger scale than what I show in the video coming up. But just to give you some ideas on what I'm putting away. Alright, so what you see in front of you here is kind of a sampling of some of the things that I have been stocking up on or rotating out lately. When I say that, I mean I've got cases of mini ravioli. So I take one case out and put a new case in. Rotate out the new stuff so I have new stuff when the emergency hits and I'm not using something that's 5 or 6 years old. So, again, it's kind of a representation. This isn't, when I say I buy luncheon loaf or Spam, I don't buy one can. I'll buy 10 cans and rotate 10 out. So that's kind of how I'm doing it. But this is some of the ideas for you out there, especially you folks new to prepping. I can give you a little bit of advice. And the first advice I'm going to give you is when you are trying to store vegetables, rotate your canned vegetables out often. They get really mushy. Now, for me personally, I have moved to going to all freeze-dried vegetables, either through freeze-dried wholesalers, who you will get a 15% discount if you click my link for him, or through Thrive Life. I have some asparagus here and some mushrooms. They stay a whole lot fresher, and yes, you have to hydrate them with water, but they're not sitting in water for 4 or 5 years before you eat them. So that's one of the reasons why my vegetables, I went to all freeze-dried and tried to get rid of the canned. Now, that said, it's more expensive. If you can't afford to do the freeze-dried stuff right away, by all means, go out and buy canned vegetables. You know, I've always told people, if you can't afford the stuff that I'm showing you on the channel, find a cheaper alternative. Just make sure you have something. You know, I don't expect people to, you know, go broke buying stuff from, you know, that I'm advertising on my channel. By all means, go out there, buy something else, you know, buy something that's affordable. I would much rather see somebody get 20 cans of, you know, canned mushrooms and have mushrooms in the store than buy 1 can of that and be like, oh, geez, I really don't have enough. I got to get more, and that's going to cut into my budget. Buy what you can afford. Don't overspend, and whatever you do, don't go into debt prepping. Use your money wisely. Another thing that I'm doing lately is the chili. I really like chili with beans or no beans. Doesn't matter to me. I find this Hormel stuff is really good. Either one is good, and it's filling, and it's a good meal. If you get these tamales, and you can buy the generic ones too. Just realized I don't have any light when I bring it up to the camera. The tamales are really awesome, and they're really filling as well. That could be 2 meals, you know, how that can. Now, another thing, yes, a lot of this stuff is very high in sodium. If you're on a restricted diet, you want to look into alternatives. And that's where freeze-dried wholesalers and Thrive come in handy. I mean, if you look at the ingredients on a Thrive package here, ingredients, mushrooms, that's it. No salt, no anything else. It's all natural. Same with the freeze-dried wholesaler. Let's see what's on here. Oh, here. This is the filet mignon. Ingredients, beef tenderloin. There is nothing else added to this. It's uncooked filet mignon. So, if you're interested in lower sodium options, you may have to go to the freeze-dried and more expensive stuff. But for just getting stocked up, remember, this isn't a diet you're going to eat every single day for the rest of your life. It's a diet you have to rely on for 6 months or so while there's a disaster going on. A perfectly healthy person, of course, you can do this, you know? I understand there's a lot of people out there that want health options, and it's really hard when it comes to survival food. It's really hard to find healthy pre-packaged stuff. The closest I can get to you is freeze-dried wholesalers and Thrive, and both are having sales this month. So if you click my link for freeze-dried wholesalers, you save 15%, and Thrive is having a November sale. We're going to have a Black Friday sale soon, so make sure you check that out. All right, next up is canned meats. Now, again, here's freeze-dried meats. This is, I believe, freeze-dried hamburger, ground beef, and this is freeze-dried chicken. Okay? Again, if you can't afford that, there are other options. There are Keystone. Now, I know this stuff is really hard to find. You don't have to tell me. I got this in Walmart about 6 months ago. So there's Keystone meats. If you can't find the Keystone meats, there's always these good old options here. I got this in Smith's, the shredded chicken breast, pulled pork from Walmart, and fajita strips. These are really good, by the way. They are steak. And they're little fajita strips, beef strips in sauce, fully cooked. And these are really, really good. The pulled pork from Great Value is awesome too. This is just some of the things that I'm stocking up on. Whoop! I hate that about Keystone cans. They don't nest. Another thing I'm doing is soups. Soups are filling. They're a little bit lower in sodium. Let me move this stuff out of the way. And they work very, very well for a meal. You know, you can get yourself a can of soup and you've got a meal right there for, I don't know how much these run. I forget, honestly. And now, who knows, they could be $10 a can for all I know. But I do rotate them out. And usually what I do, if you have a Kroger or a Smith's near you, about 4 or 5 times a year they have a case sale. And they will sell, at a good discount, cases of food. So I'll buy a case of the chicken noodle and take these, put them in my working pantry in the kitchen that we eat out of, and use these. So that's a good option too. Don't forget, let me go way in back here. Ramen. Yeah, they're high in sodium. Yeah, they're not exactly healthy for you, but they're food. Now here's where it gets interesting. You make yourself a couple things of ramen for your family, right? And you take your shredded chicken and toss it in there. Now you've got a little bit more than just noodles. You've got an actual meal. You can also take the Thrive Life stuff, and I've done this, And literally, you take a handful of Thrive Life stuff, throw it in with one soup, and by the time your soup's ready to go, your Thrive Life stuff's hydrated, and you can make your own mixture out of there. I like to do a little bit of soy sauce, and if you can find it in your local store, hoisin sauce. Very, very good. You don't need the spice pack, and then you're cutting down on the sodium from the soups because you're not using that spice pack. So, just some things that I'm stocking up on. Another thing that I really like is coconut oil. Doesn't go bad, stays good forever. It's not lard, although I do have lard stored away. We've been kind of conditioned to go, ooh, lard is bad for you. But it's a whole lot better for you than vegetable oil. So, lard or coconut oil, any kind of stuff like that. And this will when it gets a little warmer. Doesn't take much. I mean, it could be 80 degrees in here and that'd be liquid. But it will go back to solid state. Don't worry about it. It's fine. And it will hold out for a really long, long time. Last up, I was going to mention cheeses. Okay. Cheeses can be tricky. Okay. I do have freeze-dried cheeses. This is mozzarella, and this is freeze-dried wholesaler cheddar, and this stuff's awesome, by the way. I hydrate this both the same way. Ziploc bag, just enough water to get it damp into the fridge. About an hour later, I pull it out, and you've got cheese, just regular cheese. If you use too much water, it will feel slimy and wet and mushy. However, it'll still melt like cheese and still taste like cheese. Just a little bit of water, just enough to hydrate everything, get everything wet, and put it in the fridge. Same way, again, these are a little expensive. There's a trick though. You can buy this stuff here, this nacho cheese, and it's just liquid cheddar cheese. Good for about 4 years. That's the longest I've ever done, with it. This one says good till December 2023, but, I'm probably going to let it go a lot longer than that. This will stay fresh. A word of warning on macaroni and cheese, okay? If you buy the macaroni and cheeses that have the cheese powder in it, that will last you a good long time, but what do you need for it? Water and some kind of milk and some kind of butter. So you want to put those away if you have powdered butter or whatever. You can do it with just water. It's usually pretty good, but it won't be anywhere near as good without the milk and the other stuff. So you do need that, but it's a whole lot preferable to do that than to store the macaroni and cheeses in the kind of square boxes that have that cheese sauce. About a year after you buy that, that stuff becomes rubber and will not melt. Seriously, I had one that was about 2 years old. Rotated it out, thought, I'm going to have that for lunch today. And went and used the cheese sauce, and it was like rubber. I had to use my cheese powder to make some sauce for it. So, don't store those. Store the powdered ones and get yourself some powdered milk and some powdered butter. It's just as easy. Another thing, you see, I got another one back there, completes. These little complete meals are awesome. Really quick, kind of like your own homemade little MRE. They're not too bad. They have one serving size, and they are 280 calories. The sodium's a little high on them, 990 milligrams. It's kind of high. But again, if you're a healthy individual and you drink enough water, you'll be all right. Rice, you see back here, I have a big thing of rice. I have been known to buy them in the 5 and 10 gallon sizes. Kind of hold them. Like I'll buy a 10 pound and a 5 pound one. And then next time I go, I'll buy another 5 pound one. And then I got 20 pounds of rice. And maybe I'll buy a 10 pound one. When I get up to 50, what I'll do is then I'll get the Mylar and rotate out a bucket. This I'm just having ready to use. I bought a couple extra before the pandemic, just for ready to use in the house. I don't want to break into my storage stuff that's all sealed up in Mylar with oxygen absorbers. So, that is just some ideas. Again, you can use some of my discounts on the freeze-dried wholesaler stuff if you want and save some serious money. 15% off on their food. They have all sorts of stuff. This is freeze-dried venison. They have all sorts of stuff. Thrive is having a sale this month as well. They're having their Black Friday sale coming up, so make sure you check that out. You don't need to be a member to buy their stuff. You don't need to join anything. You save money by being a delivery customer or a consultant, but you don't need to be. So definitely good things to think about. As we talked about before, you want to make sure that you've got your medications ready. You want to make sure you have your first aid stuff ready, and get a good basic education on first aid. There are plenty of channels on YouTube. One that I highly recommend is Skinny Medic. He's constantly doing medical stuff. There's Dr. Bones and Nurse Amy on here as well. Excellent information, and it can save your life or save somebody else's life in an emergency. Don't go over your head with medical stuff. If you know, I wouldn't buy a full surgery kit to operate on myself, obviously, because I don't know what I'm doing. but in converse kind of thinking, maybe that surgery kit in your bag is good because the guy next door is a retired doctor and he knows what he's doing with it and he can actually save somebody's life with it. So you never know, but you weigh those things out, and that's a way down the road prep. You want to make sure you have your own first aid stuff that you're comfortable with using, before you get into, decompression needles and nasopharyngeal airways and all this other stuff. You want to make sure you have a good basic first aid kit. Take care of the regular stuff, the cuts, the boo-boos, the scratches, maybe the sprains and other injuries. And definitely get stocked up on food. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This was kind of a multi-day video. I did this over the course of this week and last week. So, it's going to be a lot of stuff thrown in a lot of different places. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And I hope you got some ideas on what you can stock up somewhat inexpensively. I know prices are up now, but somewhat inexpensively. And get yourself on the way to being prepped up and ready for what comes next. I do think we're going to be in some issues with the supply chain problem. I think come this winter, we're going to see more issues from that. You've got a ton of issues affecting transportation and trucking. And, the largest port in America is, the Long Beach there, whatever, LA port. And California trucks all have to be 2011 or newer to haul through California. So you're going to have a ton of issues. There's a ton of issues coming our way. The best bet is to be prepared so you don't have to be worried. And your most important prep, and this is my final closing on this, is a positive mental attitude. The best thing you can do during this time is something you can't buy. It's a positive mental attitude. There have been extensive documented studies that the best chance of surviving a bad situation is a positive mental attitude. We all have our moments of weakness, but a negative outlook defeats you before you even start. So your best bet is to be what I like to call a happy warrior. You're stocking up, you're feeling better about it, you're good. You're not walking around going, oh, woe is me, what am I going to do? So that's definitely my little bit of advice as far as what we got coming up. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to check out all our links down below. We have our Amazon affiliate store. As I mentioned, our freeze-dried wholesaler store. The link saves you 15%. Our My Patriot Supply, which is preparewithiridium.com. Lots of long-term storage food there. Check them out, preparewithiridium.com. And our Thrive Life food, which we're going to have our Black Friday sale this month. So make sure you're looking on there on that site and seeing what you might like and maybe keeping a mental note of it. And I thank you guys for watching. Stay safe and stay prepared.